Hi, everybody. This is Gary Walker. Welcome to WBGO Studios. Jazz musicians respond to two types of inspiration. The first, within themselves, that which gives birth to their composition, their musical ideas, their solos, their identity. The second is their collaboration and the communication that they share with people they make music with. Michael Brecker was both of those things, not only in his own recordings or recordings with his brother, but also steps ahead and so many other collaborations, not just within the jazz legacy or genre, but also Steely Dan, Lou Reed. You can't forget James Taylor and Paul Simon, two classic solos in their catalogs. Frank Zappa, Bruce Springsteen, Aerosmith, and so many others. The legacy of that man lives on to this day. And although we lost him way too soon at the age of 57 in 2007, his legacy lives on in celebration not only of his life, but also to support cancer research at the Columbia University Herbert Irving Comprehensive Cancer Center, and a focus on the work led by two doctors, Azra Raza and Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee. And with us today to celebrate the fifth edition of the Nearness of You benefit concert happening February 9th in the Appel Room at Jazz at Lincoln Center. It's my honor to welcome to WBGO the co-producers of the event and a lady who made great music on and off the stage, Michael's wife, Susan Brecker, and also Michael's longtime manager, Darryl Pitt. Welcome to WBGO Studios, folks. Does it seem like it's been 5 years?
5 years. You mean the fifth concert?
The fifth concert? Yeah.
Right. So we do it every other year,
Okay.
except I think we had a bump when there was the pandemic. But this is our fifth one, and in some ways it doesn't seem that way. In other ways, as you're producing a concert and making plans, it brings back all the memories of past concerts and what was said and who attended and who played. And honestly, Gary, not to sound trite, but it's a very warm feeling to look back and see the groupings that we put
Yes.
together and how we were able to evoke Mike every concert.
Through people like Paul Simon and Chaka Khan and Diana Krall and Wynton Marsalis and Elvis Costello, and the list goes on and on and on. It's February the 9th, the Nearness of You concert. It's in the Appel Room at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and it's hosted by Susie Essman, who many of you may know as Jeff Garland's wife on Curb Your Enthusiasm, but she's done so much more. But she's connected as well because her father is a physician, an oncological physician. And so she has a personal connection to this as well. Darryl, talk about your time with Michael Brecker and your relationship and maybe some special moments you could share between the two of you.
Oh my goodness. There are a lot of wonderful moments. I'm just blessed, really, really blessed. As we were discussing earlier, before the interview started, I was a photographer. I had met Mike as a photographer. Bob James brought Mike and Randy and Sanborn and Gad and I forget who else to University of Michigan to perform a show there because Bob had gone to school there. And I thought I would take photos. And I met Mike afterwards backstage. And then we met again and we met again. I worked at the Montreal Jazz Festival for years and we met repeatedly. And then I became a manager and I went to a gig. And Susan, this was the gig that I met you at. It was either a Brecker Brothers gig or a Steps gig at the Bottom Line, which was such a great club.
I
And
remember this. I remember this.
you were talking to Joey. You were helping Joey out.
Yes.
And and I realized instantly what an asset Susan was in Mike's life and would be in mine, which is quite true. In any event, Mike said, like, what are you doing? And I said, I guess I'd become a manager. And he goes, well, will you be mine? And I said, Mike, for that to be of consequence, for it to be meaningful, you're going to have to. And he was so comfortable being a co-leader and a sideman. I said, Mike, you're going to have to like start releasing your own records, have your own record deal, have your own career and not just be in the shadows. And he said, I think I'm ready. Let's do this. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay. And a great, 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 great guy. And I'm not saying that because he's gone. The evidence of that are the number of people that you've indicated that are performing at at these shows, and the love for Mike, and what Susan referred to as what's so heartwarming. It's what others have to say about Mike in the course of the show. He was truly a beloved guy, lovely, lovely man. Not perfect, but imperfectly perfect. He knew when he went off the rails, and he would fix it pretty darn quickly. So,
And music would help fix those things as well. And Michael, when he came to New York, he and his brother were not only musicians of note, but they also wanted to be club owners. And so they opened a club called Seventh Avenue South. And it was at that club where Susan met Michael, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. I was working, I'm a therapist, and I was working at a hospital where a woman came to volunteer to see if she wanted to be a therapist. And she was the third owner of Seventh Avenue South. And as we began to work together, she said, there's this guy, and I just think you're right together. And wouldn't you know, when we met, it was instantaneous. It was love at first sight. Michael used to love to say that. We just met, and that was it for us. And we were together ever since. As a matter of fact, this Sunday, January 25th, would have been our 40th wedding anniversary.
Wow. And on a musical note, Mike let you into his world because you got to name all the records.
I was his naming muse.
Two
Not
blocks
only
from the edge, Tales from the Hudson.
2 blocks from the edge was a Don Grolnick one, but I
tell
did
this
name
tell the story. It's a cute story.
what?
Do you remember the 2 blocks from the edge?
Of course. So Don Grolnick was an incredibly funny man, and he always kept us laughing, and we all miss him terribly. Mike and Don were best friends, and Don used to say he didn't want to live close to the edge. He wanted to live 2 blocks from the edge. So that's where that came from. Don produced a few of Mike's records, so he had a great influence on Mike.
Humor was always apparent in the world of Mike Brecker and others around him. I remember a night, I think it was David Spinoza came to a concert that I was hosting at New Jersey City University, and Mike was there. He was the guest artist. And he told this story about when they went on the road with Yoko Ono. And I mean, I was just in stitches.
Which one?
They said, well, some nights, he said, we'd walk out on the stage and, if we've been up late or whatever, we didn't want to play, we would just all walk behind a keyboard and start to play the keyboard. And that was what we did that particular night. A very special cat. And the feeling, the spirit of that legacy lives on February the 9th. It's in the Appel Room. And this year, James Taylor returns to support the effort with a performance. He and Michael were longtime friends on and off the bandstand. Chris Bodie, a wonderful singer, Lisa Fisher, Richard Blanco, and many others. Susan, you got extra names to share with us?
I think you'll have to come, but I will say this. We have some wonderful special surprises.
We do indeed.
I love special surprises.
Like say, though, Gary,
one that just became solidified just prior to this interview, actually.
That's true.
But it's a big one.
Say in the pursuit of advancement of musicians, that Terry Lynn Carrington will be playing drums, James Genus on bass, Adam Rogers on guitar, and my brother-in-law Randy Brecker And my sister-in-law, Ada Ravati, will be the horn section. And the musical director of the evening is John Beasley.
Ooh,
It's a real A-list film. We're
wow.
really excited about it.
As what's his name at the Blue Note used to say, nice grouping. Nice grouping. I
Nice
like that.
Yeah.
And this evening not only benefits and celebrates Michael's legacy, but it also benefits the research going on at Columbia University in the Cancer Center there. Talk about that and the work of two specific doctors that are working on MDS and leukemia research.
You want to talk
Suze,
about that, Darryl? You want me
go
to?
ahead, Suze. Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
It is so important right now to fund the research, and they are making great strides in cancer. But the most important thing is to try and get behind it in a very early stage, which is what they're working on. As a matter of fact, I spoke to Dr. Raza this morning, who said, you must come to my lab. We're doing some great things. And I feel if you can make a contribution to anything, and we all have things we believe in and support, for me, this is essential to try and create a feeling around being behind cancer research so the work can continue, so people will not have to die from cancer like we lost Mike. And frankly speaking, Gary, you and I have spoken. We've all had a relationship with cancer. This is not new to any of us. And it feels like it's the elephant in the room. It's there, and we hope we don't get it, and we pray we don't get it. And when somebody gets it, we have to deal with it. I'd like to deal with this head on and so create a foundation of research that we can begin to count on to help move us forward without cancer.
Yeah, and one of the early ways that you got involved was initiating a worldwide search through swabbing.
Yes, Darryl,
At,
why don't you talk about that?
Well, this is important. Randy's family, Mike's family, Randy and his sister, they weren't matching donors for Mike, and we wanted to find a matching donor. And Mike was, no, we're not going to do that for me. And that's an aspect of Mike. There was a profound amount of humility and a sense of a lack of importance as it regarded some things, where he didn't want to be the center of focus. And my argument was, Mike, the likelihood of your finding a matching donor from this is really, really small. And it's just math. But the likelihood of our being able to help others find matching donors as a result of people who will get tested to try to help you out is really high. And that's what ultimately, Susan actually had to push him even more. That didn't get us over the goal line. But he agreed, and hundreds of thousands of people got swabbed. And it's really important for your listeners to know to please get tested and join the bone marrow donor rolls, because it's an insurance policy for possibly your neighbor, possibly someone you love, and possibly even for yourself. There's an answer here, but just not enough people are stepping up to get tested and listed on the donor rolls. So,
and if you think it's astronomical, the odds of finding a donor that works, I turn your attention to a documentary film that was produced by Timothy Hutton's son, and it's called More to Live For. And it addresses in three different occasions, one of them being Michael, finding a donor. And for one of the people, a donor was found in a small village in Europe, a cat that had gone to be swabbed, helping out a friend of his. And although they weren't a match, this guy living in Dallas, Texas, was a match and was able to get the bone marrow transplant that he needed.
I should mention, sorry, but it wasn't exactly a coincidence that Mike was in the film, because Susan wrote it and directed it.
Yes.
So there's that. Also, Suze, how many lives have been saved by folks that were swabbed on behalf of Mike because they ask you like, what is the catalyst to your being here? And then they and people indicate, well, I'm here for Michael Brecker. But what's the number? What's the latest number? Do you know?
Darryl, I really don't know. I know from the film there's been over 125 matches made. Um,
Well,
it's a lot because what I did, Gary, and I know Darryl knows, is every time I showed the film, I went around the country and to Europe and showed the film. Every time I showed it, when you came out, you had an opportunity to be swabbed for the bone marrow registry. So it was a film of action. So as a result, all these matches have been made. You know, I want to point out that Darryl created a relationship with the bone marrow registry in Israel because the most likely match you'll get are people within your own ethnic group. That's most likely, not always. And Darryl created this incredible relationship. And it has stopped, and I'm not sure why, but I think people age out. But every few months or so, I'd get an email and it would say, "You've saved another life." Can you imagine? And I'm getting the chills. And every time I got that, I thought, oh my gosh. And they sent us a pamphlet to Darryl and I of the people whose lives were saved as a result of testing for Mike. It was remarkable. It was
it's
really
the important thing is that this is where it's a challenge of the time that we live in. It was, I think it was Stalin who said something to the effect of, when you reference one life, it's a tragedy. Ironically, Stalin, one life is a tragedy. Millions of lives is a statistic. And when we talk about lives like 5 lives saved, 20 lives saved, 30, 50, 100, it's just really important to note and consider for everyone to stop to think, what if it was potentially someone who was close to me or myself, that's the life that was saved? And I'm going to try to save things now by trying to find where my phone is and turn off that ringing in the background.
I can't
But
hear.
it's important that it be more personalized and not just be an abstract statistic, because this stuff, sadly, will come visit you at your doorstop.
You
And
bet.
in one way, doorstep, in one way or another, whether it's cancer or some other tragedy, it happens. And if there's ways to mitigate these things, our humanity comes from being able to step up and do so.
And you
So
never know where that answer is going to come from. It
Right.
may
that's
come
right.
from a
That's right.
swab. It
That's
may
right.
come from my good friend Michael Wolf, who was literally on his deathbed. And the doctor he was working with said, you know, we've tried every damn thing under the sun. I want to try this. And he handed him a little pill about the size of a saccharin tablet. And he said, well, now we don't use these in your particular type of cancer, but we use these to
Wow.
treat melanoma. And
And it
what
worked.
the hell?
Yeah.
And Michael, and within 10 days, his
Wow.
tumors all disappeared.
Right.
And
Wow.
he's with us today. My brother was diagnosed with lymphoma, and traditional methods were not successful at all. And through the diet doctor, I forget his name, but he was in New York, the guy that was famous for the diet, was also one of the foremost, Atkins was almost one of the foremost authorities on alternative cancer treatments. And we brought my brother to New York. He went and visited Dr. Atkins, and doctor said, I don't know what your financial situation is, but there's a clinic outside of Munich, Germany, that has a particular procedure, which oddly enough is outlawed in America, and they might be able to treat your brother. My brother is 40 years cured
That's so great.
because
That's
of
so
that
great.
visit to that little clinic outside of Munich, Germany. So never turn your back on those type of things which present themselves as possibilities in the treatment for something as severe and as ugly as cancer. February the 9th, the Appel Room at Jazz at Lincoln Center. It's the Nearness of You concert. And it features James Taylor, and Chris Bodie, and Lisa Fisher, and all the other musicians that that Susan mentioned, Richard Blanco too, and it's hosted by Susie Essman. And tickets are available through Jazz at Lincoln Center and through other outlets as well, where you can find out what's going on. The thing that really amazed me, and I got to know Michael, not as obviously as well as the two of you, but I got to know Michael on an occasional professional level. And one of the things that really inspired me and still does to this day, it's not something that I just forgot about, was his last recording, Pilgrimage. I mean, this is a guy that was at death's door, but yet he chose to continue his pilgrimage and continue with pianists Herbie Hancock and Brad Meldau and guitarist Pat Metheny and bassist John Patitucci and drummer Jack DeJohnette. And to the point where at the end of the day, when everybody was just spent, it was Michael Brecker that said, "Hey, anybody need a ride home?"
It was a real Michael was a force, and the music saved him that last year, that beautiful music. And he wrote every tune on Pilgrimage. It was, I think, his first record that he wrote every tune on.
That's right.
And it became something that he really needed to accomplish. I mean, when he had his failed transplant in Minneapolis, he used to listen to the takes from his bed, and when he would try and get on the treadmill. I mean, this really motivated him, and he would call his engineers, and he just needed to make this record. And to your point about the driving, Michael, this was his work. This wasn't something that I could go and hang out and bring my girlfriends to. This is what he did for work. And so when he would make a record, he would necessarily drive himself from our home to the studio and work and then come home. And he was so sick, really, when he was making Pilgrimage. There was this window that he wasn't quite as sick. We were fortunate that he made the record, but he refused to let me drive him to the studio. He needed to do it himself. And he was walking very poorly at the time. But
Really poorly, yeah.
he forced himself to do it. He said, "This is what I do." And he would get in the car, and I would be crying as he would pull out of the driveway at the strength and his how mighty he was to do this the way he needed to do it. And it was really remarkable, Gary. That record was just remarkable.
Yeah, and it was a quiet might that fueled him, and also I think really cemented the kind of relationships that he had with other musicians that he was able to contribute to. I'm thinking of Paul Simon and also James Taylor, obviously, but so many others that he contributed to. Bruce Springsteen, Aerosmith. I mean, all of them.
There's hundreds. There's hundreds and hundreds. But getting back to Pilgrimage for 1 second, I really urge your listeners, if they're not familiar with it, to check it out for only one reason. I remember when Mike was literally on his deathbed, and he heard the final mix of this. And this is the only time I had ever seen him do this in something like 20 years. He went, like, I finally have done something good. So if you want to experience what Mike thought was good, check out Pilgrimage.
Please check it out. It's a spectacular recording in one's continuing legacy that happens February the 9th. It's a Monday evening, right? You want to make more of a Monday? Go to the Appel Center at Jazz at Lincoln Center and check out The Nearness of You, a celebration of Michael Brecker, and also proceeds to benefit cancer research at the Columbia University Herbert Irving Comprehensive Cancer Center.
Garrett, there's one other thing I want to hasten to add about this.
Sure.
Technically, the show is sold out, but I urge your listeners to go check again and check again, because tickets will be, Columbia has an allocation. There are other entities that have allocations. So some tickets will find their way back into the box office. So just, if they tell you it's sold out, check again right before the show. You might be pleasantly surprised.
And what the hell? It's New York City. I mean, it might be a guy in a trench coat standing there at Columbus Circle going,
That's
buy
me.
some tickets.
That's me.
Oh, shush, don't tell them. But also, Gary, you know, I believe WBGO is giving away some tickets. Is
Yes,
that?
we are. So
Yeah.
stay tuned to WBGO. Visit our website because it's all right there for you. And here with us right now, right here, Susan Brecker, Darryl Pitt. I want to thank you for your time today. And
Thank you.
thank you for your ongoing support of the legacy of Michael Brecker, because especially right now, man, we need something like that to celebrate.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Gary. Thank you.
Nice to see you.